If you want to get more diversity in your sport, it has to be from all levels down, both from ownership, general manager, front office, to scouting, and obviously player and coach relationships that are on the field.
And the economics of the game now has also become more common knowledge. So yes, I think very earlier on in players' careers, they're starting to understand the economics of the game and how that works.
Hi, I'm Everett White.
And I'm Vanessa Perdomo. Thanks for joining QuickTake and our partners at The Athletic.
We're talking about athletes of color getting a seat at the table in business.
Also, what happens after a pro athlete's career is over? And what opportunities are there for them inside and outside of sports?
Just this summer, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes signed the largest contract in sports history and bought into the ownership group of the Kansas City Royals. But that's not the norm for all players. Most don't end up multi-millionaires.
That's right. But athletes are focused now more than ever on sustaining wealth during and after their playing careers. And to talk more about it, we're joined by former NBA player Cherokee Parks and writer for The Athletic, Nate Taylor. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'd like to start this discussion by talking about diversity in team ownership. Nate, you wrote an article about Patrick Mahomes having a stake in the Kansas City Royals and what that really represents and what it means. Could you tell us what that is and what it means to have somebody like him have a stake in team ownership?
Yeah, it's immensely important and I think impactful in terms of the landscape as sports tries to move into a more progressive standpoint. And so last month, Patrick Mahomes, the Super Bowl MVP quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, got a percentage ownership stake with the Kansas City Royals. So he has put his claim in both franchises, pro sports franchises in Kansas City. And because of this, and because of his new contract in the NFL, I think his ownership percentage will rise as his career sort of progresses. But ultimately, he's one of just a few handful of minority sort of people involved in Major League Baseball's ownership group. And so it was a significant milestone for not only Patrick, but for I think the sport of baseball as well, given the current events in our country. But honestly, I feel like for Mahomes, he could take either the Michael Jordan model, where maybe you become an owner within your own league, the sport that made you, and obviously you brought and rose financially because of your star power and your athletic gifts in the NFL. Or maybe he goes the Magic Johnson route where you are part of this multi-million-dollar, perhaps into the billions, as we mentioned earlier, ownership group where you can make an impact in another sport and give some diversity and give some cultural significance to how the sport will develop players and obviously its company moving forward.
So it's no secret that there's a problem of diversity in ownership across all the major leagues for the most part. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think that there could be something like a Rooney Rule or something implemented to try and fix that, or is it even fixable?
The NFL, as we have seen over the last decade or so, the Rooney Rule is not as effective as the NFL would like and hope it would, because ultimately owners make those decisions, and usually that is a large group of white men sort of selecting either coaches, general managers, or offensive and defensive coordinators that look similar to themselves and have maybe similar backgrounds. But it is an idea, particularly in baseball, just because we see the drop in minority players, particularly of African-American descent over time, where if you want to get more diversity in your sport, it has to be from all levels down, both from ownership, general manager, front office, to scouting, and obviously player and coach relationships that are on the field. So it would make, I think, a good sense for the MLB, NHL for that matter, to going in a similar path that the NFL has attempted to do. But hopefully, as we get move forward, maybe 10 years from now, hopefully their success rate is higher than what we've seen over the NFL's last decade, where NFL head coaches primarily go to white men over perhaps more qualified people of color, like maybe Ron Rivera or Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Cherokee, I want to bring you into this discussion here. And do you think that nowadays athletes are focusing more on making money off the field, even during their careers before they retire, than they used to?
Absolutely. This has started kind of in two parts. One, just kind of working backwards from now. We've seen what the NCAA has done with name, image, and likeness, and the moves that that we've talked about for so long are starting to come to light now, and their players now are being able to focus on that at a younger or earlier stage in a career. And even before that, we have with social media and players, especially with basketball, being able to put themselves out there at such an earlier age, that's become such a bigger part of their growth and maturity is their social image and what it is, and the economics of the game now has also become more common knowledge. So yes, I think very earlier on in players' careers, they're starting to understand the economics of the game and how that works, and that ultimately is going to help help these young players, one, understand their journey that they're on, but other off the court, understanding opportunities that are available to them. But basketball has done a great job of really highlighting players' individualities, interests, off-court interests, in such a way that has really trickled down to these younger guys. And we're starting to see, you see players like LeBron James' kid, has millions of followers going into high school. I mean, that's just amazing that type of exposure that they create for themselves, and within that now they're finding their own images and their own image and their own name, interests, and we're learning a lot more about these individuals off the court, and then ultimately that's going to translate into more opportunities for them down the road.
Sort of piggybacking off of that, Cherokee, you mentioned what it's like now as a player, having a bit more of a voice, a bit more power in terms of like how you manage your finances. What was your experience as a former player, watching fellow teammates and yourself sort of managing your post-career and then navigating success and managing money after that?
It was a challenge. First of all, I go back to the days where I think I had a VHS tape or two from high school, and that's pretty much it. And these younger players now, they have just hours and days and months of footage of themselves, going up. And then also through that, it was kind of, you were taught to, just to keep focus on the game. That's what was going to get you ahead. That's what was going to get you the paycheck. And you just tried to move forward through the game. And so, for myself coming out, like post-retirement, there was some emphasis going into it, but you really had to, as an individual, really immerse yourself within what it is that you wanted to transition into. Today, again, we work through player development in the NBA. We work with USA Basketball. We have an elite youth engagement program where we're reaching players that are, class of 23 that are just entering high school, and through USAB's junior national team program, and we're able to work with them and their families and kind of help them better understand the journey and embrace the broader aspect of the game, which is the logistics, the people involved, the coaching, the scouting, how the games, the tournaments, how things are organized. And then again, you see, as we discussed earlier with the name, image, and likeness with NC2A, these are things that they need to pay attention to earlier on. You kind of need to get your MBA in that realm when you're in high school. And so, so I think the players now are more well equipped, again, with the success stories and kind of what's happening post-career and what other opportunities are. They start to focus on that longer runway, past retirement, past basketball, what it is that you're interested in. And I think that, through that, they have a better understanding now at the pro level of how their pensions work, how their 401ks work, their post-career annuities. They're exploring outside interests while they're playing. They're continuing their education, and a lot of these services extend to their families as well. So their support group and people in their corner has broadened greatly. So it's really just showed a lot of work that the NBA has done, the NBPA has done, and again, really to our players, they really focused and embraced these opportunities that have been available to them, and we're just seeing a large number of players that are really coming and forth and asking questions and really, again, exploring themselves.
What advice would you give to an athlete who's 31, on the latter side of his career? What would you give from your personal experience?
Be seen and be available and ask questions. Because that's one of the great things is that when you show that you have another side yourself as an athlete, people seem to really be attracted to that and to pay attention to it. So, one of the greatest things, and I literally mean be seen. You know what I mean? I could sit down in a room and if I sit down, I'm almost 7 feet tall. If I sit down, I'm just like anybody else in the room. But if I stand up, all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at this guy. Like, who is this? Let me go ask a question. It's interesting. And it's okay not to know things. It's okay to walk up to an owner of a team that's worth billions of dollars and say, man, I know who you are and I know you make a lot of money, but I really don't know what you do every day. And you'll find that most of the time these doors will be open. You know, it's okay to come in and it doesn't come across as naive and you don't come across as ignorant. You come across as being exploratory and you're inquisitive, and people like that. So I think the most you can do is just ask questions. And as far as our respective sports is open your mind up to the rest of the game. We can decide as athletes very early on if, hey, I want to work in sports. This is what I want to do. I don't know what it is yet, but I want to stay in the sports industry. And you can really open up a lot of avenues. There's a lot that we learn just being around the game. If again, you take time to ask questions, what it is that you do, what scout, what do you do? What do you like about your job? Are you in front of a computer? Do you do a lot of phone calls, you do a lot of meetings? You can start asking a lot of questions early on in the journey that ultimately just through association, by the time, the amount of time we spend on the quarter on the field will inherently pick up a lot of knowledge. So someone in their later career, it's maybe I would say if you're transitioning out is to, and you may not have any idea or maybe have anything of interest in mind, but it's just to be seen and be available. As we know with athletes, man, your time is valuable. Athletes get paid thousands of dollars to sit and either sign autographs for a few minutes or be seen somewhere at some event for a few minutes. And that time is just as valuable, in many different areas. So mainly it's just to be seen, keep your name relevant in positive circles and associate yourself with good people. And ultimately opportunity will come from that.
And just like what Cherokee said, in the NFLPA, they've gotten a lot better about not only just letting guys understand what they want to do with their foundations, maybe what they want to do from a charitable standpoint, understanding who to maybe talk to if you want to become an agent, if you want to become someone who is a financial advisor, or who wants to be a part of maybe the player association, because there's going to be contract negotiations and collective bargaining agreements, and you need the perspective of former players to be a part of that sort of negotiation. And I think the NFLPA has tried to do a better job of getting players to understand that. I think players are more willing now to listen to that idea because, as we all know, an NFL player on average stays in the league about 3 to 4 years. So as soon as these guys get into the league, as soon as they're drafted, it's upon the NFLPA's, programs and systems to let them be as knowledgeable as they can to understand that, yes, you want an 8, 10, 12-year career, but as soon as your career starts, you need to be thinking about what you want to do outside of football because your career may be shorter than you initially anticipate or want.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I would say, just working along with that same thing. We got, there's always this, or maybe, some people have the misperception that because you play, that means you can coach or you can all of a sudden just get in front of the camera and start talking about the games. And that's not the case. These people that do these jobs and do them well, they work very hard at them. And it's a whole different skill set. So, again, we have we have an assistant coaches program that we work, and there's broadcaster youth through the NFLPA. And these are things to help players work and get better at these type of things. And you see those players that are committed to that early. You'll start seeing players now on TNT and TBS. And the guys like Vince Carter was working with the Junior NBA Global Championships. He's broadcasting the games to the Grant Hills, to the Chauncey Billups, to the Paul Pierces. I mean, they jumped right into that. We got to see these individuals grow in these positions, but there's something that they focused on and they worked on, and they had an idea that they wanted to do this before they were done playing. So, absolutely. But the guys, a lot of them now, the interest that they have, they're fully immersed in those. So again, you talked about Damian Lillard with music and guys wanting to get fashion, and they really aren't. They're not just money backing these type of interests. They are actually personally involved, and these are things they're passionate about. And through the league and some programs, we've been able to offer them some opportunities to learn more about these businesses that they're interested in. There's a lot of things that people learn earlier on in their professional careers or in college, that all of a sudden you're 32 and you're learning how to put together an Outlook, set some appointments up, that sometimes it's like, it can be a challenge. So just those soft skills are things that they can bring together or know how to put the right people around them that are going to be able to work on these for them. But just again, exploring a lot of these opportunities, these interests earlier on in their career is the goal, and just understand they'll just ultimately see that the path that they're on, that these connections, these people are going to be available to them. But you got to present yourself, ask questions, get involved, feel vulnerable, maybe even a little bit. But earlier on, things will start to stick. And then when it's come time, you'll have an exit strategy and you'll be ready to take that next step.
So Gmail and Slack training is what you're for.
I did my first PowerPoint just a couple years ago, and I still haven't. It's terrible.
I'm sure it's great.
Terrible. And I gave in front of senior leadership too, so I completely fell down and just fumbled the ball. I couldn't have done it in front of a better group of people. So you know what I mean. So, but yeah, it was like I said, it was some small things, and I just ended up making it into big things. But yeah, you know,
I couldn't give a PowerPoint right now if I tried. Cherokee, we know you have to go. Thanks so much for joining us, Cherokee, Nate, both of you so much for adding so much to this discussion, and it was really important, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys so much for being on. Really appreciate your responses, your presence, your jokes. It was great. Loved it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, and hello everybody from the bubble down in Orlando.
Hey.